Hi, my name is Shankar. I'm the co-owner of Vaksana Farmstay. As part of my research for the book I'm currently writing, it's titled The Profitable Farmstay. I'm having conversations with owners of some of the world's best farmstays. I'm also having conversations with some of the world's best designers of farmstays and farms. In that connection, in this episode, we are having a conversation with an amazing couple, two professional permaculturists, two professional farm designers. Their names are Liam Davis and Giuliana Davis. They are the owners of Genesis Farmstead from the United States, and they have helped design some really awesome farmsteads. And in this episode, for us to have really profitable farmstays, we need to have beautiful farms, and that's exactly what we're going to be discussing. Let's jump in. Liam and Giuliana, thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Karuba.
Yes.
I want to kickstart by letting our viewers know a little bit about both of you. And could I request Giuliana to start off with your introduction, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Giuliana Davis. I'm Liam's wife. I'm a mother to a little 1-year-old baby boy, and I grew up an artist. I've always loved to draw. I've also always loved to cook, and I've found my passion and my life's work in the design work that I do for Genesis Homesteads, which is Liam and my homestead design business. And we're out here in Texas, Eastern Texas, in the United States, and we are designing for and operating a 500-acre farm here, where we have a diversified production of cows, chickens, and a lot more incoming this spring.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'm Liam Davis. We are the co-founders of Genesis Homesteads, and my background was in a lot of things. It was being an author, musician. I was a software engineer for a while, but really we both found our true calling with growing regenerative food and designing for families across America using systems like permaculture, like rotational grazing, designing their homesteads, designing their farm stays so that they're as abundant and healthful as possible. And so that's where we found our life's work.
That is awesome. I love the fact that um, you're not just permaculture designers, but you're actually walking the talk. And I think that's where the experience really comes in. So, could you tell us the kind of work that you do at Genesis?
Yeah, so our primary work is in partnership with a company that we actually helped develop. The owner of it is a good friend of ours, their family. It is Axe Decentralized Real Estate. So what they do is they go across America and they find ranches that would normally be sold to investment firms or, equity funds, and they purchase them and they break them into individual 10-acre homesteads. There's a huge movement in America right now of people wanting to reconnect to the land, to move back to the land, but still have some of the more modern amenities, still have a beautiful home and maybe rent out an Airbnb. And so we now have broken off from that, and we're helping each of the families with my wife's beautiful hand-drawn designs, going through and designing their specific land parcel to be unique to them while still bringing in this deep knowledge of where do we put a food forest? How does the food forest work? How do we install that so it works in this specific climate on this specific parcel, perfect the first time. And what we were seeing was many people were saying, I want a homestead. I want to go out to the country and I want to have this life and reconnect with like maybe my great grandparents or whatever were farmers, but I don't know where to start. And so we're able to come in and say, hey, we have a background in so many of these different disciplines. My wife didn't even say, but she actually raised beef cows for years and grew, 40,000 pounds of regenerative beef and grass-fed beef per year. So we have these different disciplines that we've kind of brought together, and instead of just doing it for ourselves, keeping it to ourselves, we're now able to help families across America with that. So
Yeah, we do a lot of consulting with families, figuring out what's unique to them, what they value, what they want for their parcel of land. And then we look at the, topographical maps, we look at the watershed, we look at the sun, the wind, we look at the properties as a whole and design for that. And then those holistic designs inform the individual parcels along with the family's wants and needs. You know, how many people are going to live there, what they enjoy, what kind of foods they prefer. So a lot of consulting, a lot of designing, and also research and operating the grounds. So it's a little, we also wear many hats, like you said before we started recording, maybe 5 or 6 hats.
Yeah, and also part of that work is training ranch hands to come out and to help operate the farm. So even bridging that gap of people who own the land, but they don't have the experience, and then people who are maybe younger or just really want to be involved with organic farming, but don't have access to the land and bridging that. So bringing people together in that way.
Wonderful. Now, when a client comes to you, and I just want to set the context before I ask that question. So the book is titled The Profitable Farmstay. Actually, the success of the farmstay heavily relies on how awesome the farm is. And a lot of that has to go with proper designing of the farm. So let me get to the question. Let's say there's a client, let's say a person has 10 acres and they come to you saying that, listen, I want to start a farmstead and I eventually want to live there and hopefully I want to start a farmstay. What advice would you give the person? And could you walk us through the step-by-step process on how both of you go about designing a great farmstead?
You want to take it? Me?
Sure. Well, I just wanted to say water.
The first thing we look at is how can we secure the water access on the land, make sure we're capturing and using as much water as possible to nourish the soil, to make sure that it's able to be accessible to the homes, to any livestock, because water is really the limiting factor of life. So when we're making those phase maps, the first thing is we'll sit down and we'll look at the contour maps, the topographical maps, say how is the water flowing across this land, and how can we put in things like keyline design and swales for food forests to usually capture the water. If it's an area very prone to flooding, it'll be how can we move the water away from, maybe we don't want flooding over here, but we want a pond over here. So we break it apart into digestible chunks.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So before we move to the other segments of the design, one of the things that I'm noticing amongst my peers, who are people who have farms, is that, hey, I'm going to wing it. I'm going to do this on my own. Why would I want to invest in a farmstead designer? I could save that money. I can do this on my own. So what has been your experience? In people wanting to do this on their own versus coming to a consultant, what would be your reaction?
I would say, in our conversations with homesteaders, people that have done it on their own, many of them say it took me 5 years, it took me 10 years, it took me 15 years. Some of them had to start over again multiple times. And we would actually go in the beginning stages of doing all of this to homesteading conferences to do market research of, hey, just stopping people and saying, hey, how long have you had your homestead? And how difficult has it been, or how easy has it been? And as people, we're meant to work together in community. We're meant to have access to a shared knowledge resource. And there's a lot of chaos in the homesteading community because many people are trying to reinvent the wheel and figure out little bits and pieces on their own. And that's why it's very important to go to people who have deep knowledge, homestead designers and people like that who have a deep knowledge in the variety of disciplines that are necessary. Because it's fun at first, but then when you just maybe somebody just wants to be a cook, or maybe somebody just wants to be an author with the farm on the side, and they're out there on a Saturday when they should be relaxing, and they're having to worry about the well, or they're having to worry about the septic, or whether the solar's working, or because the sheep got out. And so making sure that you have that firm foundation from the beginning is very important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. For me, the analogy that I always say is that, hey, Roger Federer the best in the world, but he has a coach, right? Usain Bolt, when he was running at his fastest, he had a coach. They could say that, hey, I'm the best in the world. I don't need someone. So I think I draw a parallel towards having someone who's really researched this subject, gone deep into it, and by taking the services of professionals, what you do, what you earn most is really time. You save that 5 years or 6 years of time that you would have spent on your own, and you'd have gone through the entire process and then corrected yourself. I think that's the way how I look at it. But what, in your opinion, what is it that makes people stop or not take the services of a professional consultant?
There's a lot of different kinds of people out there. Some people find it thrilling, the challenge of doing it yourself, and they actually take, they get a lot of rewards from that, and that's totally fine. But a lot of the time it might be pride. Pride.
Yeah, or maybe kind of, well, we have to ask, what is the end goal too? And like personally for us, our end goal is we want a happy, healthy family and a bountiful abundance of the good things in life. And there is a lot of struggle that goes in. If we just look at America, and when America, we had the pioneers going through, and there was so much hardship and heartache of them having to go out and figure out things. And it really goes back to that. What is the end goal? Is it to, in 15 years, give up, or is it we want to be successful? And so I think sometimes in that pride, or maybe just not knowing what they don't know, they're sort of setting themselves up for failure. I don't want to be too blunt about it, but that's what we see.
So it's just that like cultural in America, a cultural, I guess, habit of just like go up by the bootstraps and do it on your own kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and also I think you're right that there is some of the just the thrill of the adventure. But we can still have adventure, but have it be, let's make sure that we're going to get to where we're actually going.
Yeah, put a little bit of wisdom in there, like working together and relying on, the experts, and like putting yourself, because I think it does show a little bit of vulnerability when you ask for help. So that might be some of the resistance, is not, feeling comfortable in our culture to ask for help in a genuine and authentic way.
Does Genesis Homestead does it have a farm stay?
I guess you could say
ranch.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say we help other people have farm stays for the most part. So here in Texas, it's called Little G Ranch, and there are 35 families that will be coming out. So we'll be helping each one of them, maybe not all of them, but a good deal of them have their own Airbnbs and places that can be rented online. So we also welcome anybody visiting America, and it'll probably be up and running in the next 4 to 6 months. So
it's the first ACTS decentralized real estate property that we're based out of right now, and we actually have 20 acres of our own for Genesis. So we plan on developing that as our little test, or not really test, but a model homestead. So it will show like what is possible with that smaller amount of land for people. And yeah, but for now we're just designing for the whole 500 acres and helping the families as they plan to move out here. So
that's the benefit of being a husband-wife team, because I completely forgot about that. I would just be off designing homesteads in like Montana for other people the whole time and forget to actually have space. So
yeah.
It's called the barber syndrome, Liam. A barber, which is a saloonist, he can give great haircuts for others, but he can't give himself a haircut, right? Sometimes when you're in the farmstead design, sometimes our own needs kind of takes a backseat. So when Giuliana said that you guys have 20 acres as part of the larger parcel of land, and you're also helping design. design places for your guests. I want to ask individually, and starting with Giuliana, I'd love to, I want you to paint me a picture of your perfect um, farmstead of your dreams.
Well, like Liam said, I worked for a few years running cattle in Western Massachusetts, and we did a rotational grazing program there on 40 acres. And that was kind of my first boots on the ground experience with not so much permaculture, but just regenerative agriculture. And I just loved being out there and seeing the diverse pasture. You know, you look down and you just see like dozens of different grasses, and they're all different and beautiful. And you see, you know, the honey or the bees flying around, the butterflies. There just are a handful of bird calls that you can hear around you. There's, you know, clover popping up. There's white clover, red clover, all that. I mean, that's going to be dependent on where you are and what climate you're in, but just a diversified grassland, a pasture with the cows on the side and all these different sounds, the buzzing, the birds, the warmth. That's just such a peaceful environment to me. And just being able to walk out in my backyard and see the grass, that's what I'm excited about. You know, people call it grass farming for a reason, because the grass is the solar, it's the battery for the solar energy. And the cows are just, you know, a process of storing that energy and transferring it to food. So that, speaking of food, just being able to walk in my backyard and having a cooler, like a root cellar, or even in my basement, and just have my own grocery store on my property, that's ideal to me. To not have to drive to the grocery store, to be able to go outside and get it myself from my own land. And also having a community, you know, seeing kids running around, having John, our son, just go outside and hang out with the neighborhood kids and not worry about, you know, where they're going to be or what, if we're going to be able to have dinner that night or any of that, because it's abundant and it's all there. And those are, I think, the top on my list of ideal homestead.
Looking forward to having this integrated landscape too of we have our home and maybe we have, you know, a guest house or an office or a gazebo or just a place of peace to meditate and to pray, and having it all integrated together to, as you're walking from place to place, there is shade from the fruit trees and, you know, medicine there as well. And not just physical medicine, but like, you know, spiritual medicine and all of that. And having this sense of because in America right now it's very based around the vehicle. Like you need a car to drive sometimes 30, 45 minutes to the nearest grocery store. But instead having a more grounded life where with technology, like I call it technology, but it's really just creation. It's really just that magic. It's food forests and gardens that have, you know, very healthy soil and everything. That as you're going from place to place in your life, you're able to also say, oh, let me pick some carrots on the way back to the house. And then, you know, I'm going to the house to get something, but I'll drop those off so that they're ready for dinner or something like this, having a more integrated lifestyle.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
If you were to advise people with some existing infrastructure in place and they want to start a farm stay, what advice would you give them?
First, I would say bioremediation is top priority, because with monocropping is a lot of damage to the soil and the soil microbial life. We actually have a reel that we're working on right now for Instagram about the soil microbial life and how key that is. So that's where I would start, and designing for a bioremediation plan for the, I mean, it will depend if they want to, you know, dedicate, like turn over the whole farm, or, you know, start bit by bit, you know, I want to dedicate like these acres and then grow from there. So I would just start off with that plan, and, you know, finding a way to create guilds that incorporate other like if they want to stay in, growing sugarcane, but they just don't want it to be so damaging to the landscape, we can design for guilds with symbiotic plants that will help the sugar cane grow, but also we don't need to rely so heavily on fertilizers and pesticides because they're working in symbiosis and it's a more balanced ecosystem.
Hmm. Yeah, good. We're on the same page because yeah, I would have said soil, and because the soil is so damaged by monocropping that yeah, building up like we were saying that foundation in all ways, and really even beyond grass farming, it's like we're soil farming or soil microbe farming. And from there, I guess we would say find a niche, like because to make a farm stay really appealing, maybe it's a petting zoo or something, or maybe it's pumpkin picking or berry picking, and making it so that there is no exposure to pesticides, there is no exposure to herbicides and things like that, making it fully holistic system really draws people in because then they say, okay, well, it's okay for my kid to go run out into the fields and go and pick the berries. And then it with the symbiotic plantings, you're bringing in so many beneficial insects and things like that, that as you're going through, it becomes much more beautiful as to where it was like a kind of a forceful system that's trying to force one plant to grow. And then it becomes an ecosystem that, a good way of saying it, and Gabe Brown, excuse me, Gabe Brown in North Dakota, he's a great resource for this. And he says, we don't have the highest yield in our area, but we're the most profitable because as
Mm.
you're moving away from synthetic fertilizers, as you're moving away from
Mm.
pesticides, the cost goes down greatly. And then maybe, you might reduce your yield by 5% or something, but your costs, your overhead is much, much lower. And kind of a final thing would be also transition slowly, don't like pun intended, don't bet the farm on it. Like it's sort of like Gabe Brown also explains it as the soil is like a drug addict when you've had it on fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers for so long. So you need to sort of ease it off of that and then um, keep that vision, don't let other people who maybe are entrenched in the old ways tell you
Mm.
otherwise and say, hey, your yield went down this little bit, because there are the resources, people like us, but many, many other people who
Mm.
have, even monocrop corn farmers in Kansas, in America, that have completely cut out nitrogen fertilizer. So
Mm.
it is possible, but it takes that little mustard seed of faith in the beginning. But
Yeah, remembering your why, like why make the transition. It's going to be a lot more rewarding in the end.
Beautiful. I love that. I remember your why and focus on the soil, because once you take care of the soil, then the soil takes care of you with all the things that you're planning to grow. So very well said. I think that's for me, that's a aha moment. Um, so Liam, when you come across a place like this, when you're designing for a client, and like you rightly said, amending the soil should be on top of the priority list. What has been the most effective, or if I'm a little greedy, what is the quickest way to amend a soil?
So it's funny you said most effective and quickest because there is the most effective way and then there's the quickest way, but we're able to actually use both of those sort of while we're waiting for the most effective one to be finished. So what we'd start off right away with would be worm castings or worm compost, which you get a lot of red wiggler worms to process, uh, various plant scraps, maybe manure from cows and things like that, and you find the right balance. And then what's excreted by them is very, very rich in microbial life and nutrients. And what I would even say is to go away from focusing on are the nutrients in the soil, but say, is the microbial life in the soil there to act as the transporter for those nutrients? So to carry the nutrients from the soil to the plants, because especially with the application of synthetic fertilizer, many of our fields actually have 40, 50 years of all the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that we need. But there's not the microbial life there. So I just wanted to say that as an aside. So we'd focus on making worm compost teas and extracts, spraying them at regular intervals, and just getting that fungal, getting that bacterial life back into the soil. Long term, Many people think of compost as something that you're turning. So you're taking the pile and you have to turn it, otherwise it gets too hot, or maybe it gets anaerobic, which means it's not growing the right kind of bacteria that you want. But there's a brilliant, I guess, scientist, professor, Dr. David Johnson, and his wife. I forget her name, please excuse me, but it's known as Johnson Sioux compost, what he has created. So it is a static compost pile where the compost is never turned, and there is instead PVC or maybe mesh, a pipe put down the middle of it that allows the oxygen to go through. And what this does is if you leave that for a year, it naturally inoculates with all the fungal spores of the surrounding air because you're not turning it during that year. It's not killing the mycelial, the fungal threads in there, because turning the compost makes it bacterial dominant because you're killing the fungi that are in there. So you're getting a very, very, very fungi rich compost, which you're then able to make compost extracts out of and spray onto the field. So after about a year, you have something that you couldn't even buy because it's specific for your area because it got those fungal spores from the local air. So we just focus on basically the compost, long story short, is just the right compost and the right, extracts and proportions and all of that.
And you know what? It also makes it for lazy composting, right? It doesn't require too much of your work. So I love that idea. Yeah. What next would you recommend the person to do?
House that you envision? What is the architectural style of it? Where exactly would you maybe want to place it and start dreaming, So
Yeah. Or if
starting
you're really into chickens, like growing your own chicken feed, basically. Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it's like kind of making a list of all these different things and then thinking big picture, where would you maybe want them to go? uh Homestead Farmstead designer can help a lot with that, and that's a huge part of what we do is actually just saying you wanted this and this, well, we think that it should go here, we think that it should go here, and really the next step is thinking, but that we have the farm part, what about the stay part? And what is that dream home or that dream Airbnb or rental going to look like? And once you have that beginning and then sort of the end, then you can start considering, well, we then need the fruit trees on the along the walkways and things like, and we need the gardens and where the garden's going to go. So you can start to bridge those two things together. So definitely, I would sit down and just make a list of, I want a two-bedroom home. I want a vineyard. I want a little patio where people, when it's a hot day, they go out and there's a kiwi trellis over it and they sip the wine from the vineyard and just start to dream in that way. And that's another way that, working with permaculture designers, we think of the whole system and we think of every single output as the input into another system. So it's like there's really no waste in the system and everything's connected. So like, for instance, you make the patio for the wine drinking and maybe there's grapes on the trellis over it or something. So that's really where it gets to be very fun and you start really dreaming.
Permaculture designers, as people who's very passionate in this line, I'm sure you must have visited a lot of farms. You would have traveled around. Can you tell me which farm or a farmstead or a farmstay that you personally have liked? And said that, hey, you know what? This is the place that I absolutely adore. If I were to stay, I would stay in this place. Could you name one or two of them?
I'm willing to go to the Bullocks brothers.
I know this. I would have to say, and I've traveled a lot, visiting more farms than farm stays, mainly because of we were getting that foundation. But and I don't want to put them out there too much because I don't know if they're still accepting visitors or they're getting a little older and with the lockdowns and everything. And I think it might have changed. But the Bullocks Brothers homesteads or homestead on Orcas Island in Washington State, if you're able to visit that, it is a family of three brothers. And they have their wife and wives and children, and it's all an interconnected, multi-family 10-acre homestead that's been active for 30 or 40 years. So you can kind of see that end stage of this is the goal to move towards, or this is kind of a goalpost. And yeah, last I checked, they're accepting visitors. I'm not sure about stays, but definitely I would put that on your bucket list if you
Mm.
are interested in permaculture or farm stays or any of that.
Yeah, it's on my list because that's where Liam, some 10 odd years ago, or I don't know.
Yeah, almost 10 years at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you really learned permaculture. You started to learn permaculture.
Yeah, and it's in a little Mediterranean microclimate on the island too. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of it's a great example too of how you can use your specific little area for your land and not maybe be restricted to the environment around you because they're able to grow like palm trees and things like that when normally it's too cold for that. So
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And just like the flower is in the bud, I would say Little G Ranch, because although we're just getting started, it's going to be in, a year, 2 years, it's going to be one of the premier permaculture homesteads, farmsteads out there. Liam's putting his heart and soul into this place. I'm putting everything I have into this place. And it's just going to be amazing. We have 20 cows. We have, a handful of chickens. We're training our livestock guardian dogs. And now that it's spring, we're going to be putting some cover crops in and some swales, earthworks. And it's just with all of the research that we've done and all of the knowledge we're synthesizing, it's going to be unlike any other place on earth. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Are you documenting your journey? Is there somebody who can watch and see how you guys are shaping this up to be the dream farmstead?
Not enough, not
yeah,
enough, Kruba, I must
so
say.
so we're documenting it, but we're going to be ramping it up. So right now there isn't as much of a
Hmm.
something to go watch right now, but we are documenting it. We're taking drone footage, and we'll be doing interviews with the different farm stay owners, the different families who are on the different land parcels. So um,
Hmm.
we envision it almost being like a movie or documentary
Hmm.
in the future.
Beautiful. I
Hmm.
would love that. And I'm sure the audience watching this it'll be right up their alley. You should definitely pursue that. As we draw to a close, I have a few questions. So what resource, it could be a book, a podcast, it could be a video that has had the greatest impact for you and that you would strongly recommend viewers to watch or read?
I want you to go first because I want to see if you take mine.
Water for any farm.
She did.
It just Liam came to me like what 4 months ago, and he said you have to read Water for Any Farm by Mark Shepard. And my mind was blown because we knew water was important. We knew we were already designing for water, putting ponds in, swales in to catch the water. But just the level of actual design and planning that can go into it to make it successful sooner and just for to basically secure it forever. I mean, as long as the land is there, God willing. It's just amazing what you can do, in the first few months of owning the land to set it up for its lifespan. And, just being able to turn clay soil into rich, dark topsoil over 10 years when we've been taught it happens over millennia. And
Mm.
actual pictures, actual documentation of the transition from soil to be poor to rich, just from our own actions of putting a few swales here and there, is mind blowing to me. And that was we came up with a reel about water turning deserts into forests about a month and a half ago or two
Almost 2 months
months.
ago, yeah.
And it just blew up. Like, I think it has 400,000 views because it is mind blowing what water can do for our farms. So that's definitely something I'd recommend for anybody. Sorry for
Yeah.
taking
Well,
yours.
no, that's probably the Instagram post that connected us, and that book, Water for Any Farm, that was the direct inspiration for that. I remember we
Mhm.
read it and we were just like, we need to tell everyone about this. So it really gives a design language for anybody. And if somebody is saying, hey, what can I do right now? Maybe I don't have the money, and I just have this land right now. I would pick up that book and see how you can apply those principles to your land.
Mhm.
I do also want to shout out two other books, which are just great for inspiration about how to approach the alternative, sort of the holistic way of farming, which is Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown, and then You Can Farm by Joel Salatin. And both of those, they just give a very I guess, inspiring look at people who came from maybe a conventional way of farming, or they came from very horrible land, land that people around would say, you don't want to buy that, there's no way you can do anything with that. And what they've been able to do, um, and now that we know what they did, we can do it much faster than they did it. And basically, it's a very inspiring look at regenerative agriculture from both of these sort of pioneers in the space.
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, truly.
They do. Those are three really nice recommendations. So I'll put them up in the description below along with links. So that was fabulous. And one final thing, where can people find you online?
They can go to Instagram, go to @GenesisHomesteads, just one word, or go to genesishomesteads.com. And then if they're interested in our sister company and who we're very tight knit with, that's AxeDreal on Instagram. So ACTSDEREAL, and the same way of spelling, but .com for their website. And that's where we spend most of our time online. So
fabulous. That's just awesome. Giuliana and Liam, you guys have been really nice. Thank you for sharing your honest input. I mean, I'm sure this is a distillation of your years of research, of seeking knowledge, and you put that together and sharing with us. Really means a lot. And I love the fact that I always believe that the best people to learn from are from the doers. I'm a professor, so I've always felt like the best professor is someone not from an academic background, but from a guy who's actually been consulting in that. So I love that in both of you, that you guys are the actual doers. You roll up your sleeves, you get into the field, and you design. And now you're coming and talking to us on this thing about how to design a great farmstead. This means a lot to us. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you for having us. It's been such a pleasure, and to anything we can do to get the word out and inspire others. So thank you for providing the platform, Karuba.
Yes, thank you.